Call to Arms, Gates of Hell, an immersive, historically based World War II game telling the story of the Eastern Front of the war, was released in June 2021. Over time, the game has been expanded to feature the Finnish Winter War, Continuation War, and Lapland War, plus the Western Front. The upcoming DLC will feature the Commonwealth and German operations in Europe from 1940 to 1945. Every year, the game is upgraded with free content, technological improvements, and new paid expansions are released regularly. Slowly but surely, the project will feature an ever-growing quantity of World War II theaters and battles. Spring of 2025. It is quite an important time by all standards. Eclipsed by the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II in Europe, these days hide another significant jubilee for us, Barbed Wire Studios, developers of Call to Arms, Gates of Hell. It's been an epic journey, but it hasn't been easy. It was never meant to be easy. Although the project was announced in 2015, it took a long time for it to materialize into the actual release product in 2021. Many years of challenges, changes, and evolution.
Probably one of my favorite things about Gates of Hell is the ability to direct control units, the inventory system, being able to loot units and customize your armies even in the middle of the battle. That's one of my favorite things for sure.
Besides Gates of Hell, I work in another company. Some of my coworkers are also big into building video games and they are very interested in history and World War II in general. Recently we had a sale where I proposed to them to get the game because it was very cheap, and they were very amazed by the level of details, just the general feeling of the game, how immersive and how good the experience was.
The fact that you can control any unit, and with just one soldier you could do an incredible amount of damage to your environment and to the enemy. The amount of things you can do with the environment and the interactability that you can do with the world around you allows you to have a sense of freedom and immersion that you just don't get with other games that feel more on rails.
The very first time Gates of Hell was officially pitched was in February of 2015. The pitch for the game was accepted. The project's producer, Julia Romanova, selected the name Gates of Hell from a long list of proposals, and so the work began. Barbed Wire Studios was the name of our developer team that designed the game, and we were published and assisted by the team that owned the game engine rights. The developers that made up the initial developer team came from the fan base of, well, Men of War. The idea was to make a game that was unique and highly sought after in the community. A game that puts the emphasis on realism and immersion, giving all tanks and uniforms all the details and variations seen in the books and in the movies. A game where every unit counts.
I like how the game is so detailed. Vehicles, units, everything is so detailed, and you can use direct control. You can do micromanagement, and you can think about how to solve the missions. I've already tried several this type of game. In Men of War, you can use this direct control system. Fantastic.
At the end of August 2015, Gates of Hell was announced worldwide via the Steam Greenlight program. Steam Greenlight was discontinued shortly after Gates of Hell passed the contest. But back then, if you wanted your games published on Steam, you had to have the community vote for it. The Greenlight phase lasted only 6 days, a record time. A special mention to the mighty Jingles, who was kind enough to advertise our game in his Mingles with Jingles video series. In the first year, Barbed Wire Studios had 5 members. Over the years, the team would expand, always bound together by the passion and vision for the game.
Our objective making this game was always to provide an encyclopedic amount of content. I know that a lot of people freak out over the sheer number of variations and number of vehicles that we have, uniforms and equipment models. And this is an interesting paradox with game design. A traditional game designer would be reluctant to make 5 versions of the same tank, especially if they have very similar game characteristics like armor and armament. It becomes redundant, and it takes quite a lot of time and money to make all these 3D models. There's a special value to having the right type of version of a tank on the right battle at the right time. My colleague Joe, that I started making Gates of Hell with, always used to present his mod. Play what you see in the movies, what you read on the books, everything on your fingertips. And I think we made that happen with Gates of Hell.
The game continued its development until 2018, releasing regular dev blogs and media showcasing the ever-growing collection of 3D models, maps, and design decisions made for the project.
I joined Barbed Wire Studios in 2016. I had been a modder in the community for, at that point, 6 years. The head of Barbed Wire Studios, Carlos, and I knew each other from that community, and there was an opening for someone who understood sound design for one, and a lot of the interaction coding stuff as well, and those were both areas I had expertise in.
In 2020, external circumstances led to the team breaking away from the publishing deal. This meant that BWS needed a solution to keep using the game engine. Alternatives were explored, and eventually BWS and Digital Mindsoft signed a deal to publish the game as a DLC for their existing title, Call to Arms.
We started exploring options for changing the game engine, which is obviously a very big ordeal. And Chris, the owner at DMS, was receptive to the idea. All things considered, we decided to work with him instead of porting to an entirely new engine altogether. We're grateful for all of the companies and all of the people that we managed to work with since our inception.
Digital Mindsoft's programmers and game directors, who had expertise in making the Assault Squad series of games, contributed to the game's development. The GEM game engine requires talented programmers able to deal with the complexity of the code. It is a challenging task, even for the very creators of the engine.
I am the lead programmer at the DMS. I am one of the original GEM engine programmers. When Chris told us that we will be working on this new title with the new team, I was a little bit annoyed, because that's the old engine, and when you work on this more than 20 years, you just, can we finally work on something else? And we did, but then again, when it comes to new challenges, to new tasks, new ideas, as a programmer you just jump in and do that, and that's what makes this interesting to me, doing some new stuff that you didn't think you can implement on this engine.
Many features and unique improvements were done to the engine of Call to Arms Gates of Hell. One of the novel design features was the ability to change between third-person and top-down direct control, which allowed the players to see the details of the game more close-up than ever before. It makes vehicle combat very exciting, simulating the periscopes and zooming magnifications of the real vehicles. The vehicles were given complex hitboxes and internal components, and the whole vehicle damage system and ballistics was made as realistic as possible. Different types of ammunition with their unique parameters were also added. The immersion significantly increased, together with the need for players to have at least some knowledge of real-life tactics in order to be victorious on the virtual battlefield.
I joined the team as a level designer in 2017. After some time I decided to step up because I wanted to have an impact on the level design team. My first thing that I did when I come in was trying to organize everything much better than what we did beforehand. I spent a lot of time talking with all the level designers to get to know them, to know who preferred to do what, and find the task that would be best suited for each of them. When we worked on the Ostfront content, we were very happy to all share the stuff depending on who liked to do each thing, and everyone just liked to do the task much better. I'm very proud that we could release Gates of Hell Ostfront with this team, and that the work has continued since then very smoothly, I think.
We have a wonderful group of testers. They volunteer their time to us, and we are really grateful for it. They're all really great people, and we all mesh really well in the testing group, and we all know and love what we want to do. All of them are really passionate about the game and different parts of the game. Some people love the immersion, some people love the PvP. Everybody has a self-responsibility to make the game better for the community. What they find can help fix 100 people's problems if they can find one problem, and they all are really up for the responsibility and love it.
Doctrines and war periods were introduced in the multiplayer. This adds further replay value and diversity. It was much needed innovation, allowing many game combinations, even with only 2 factions to choose from.
It's really a factor of depth. You see, 2 factions in one game seems like a small amount. However, the Germans and the Soviets had just so much variation, so many special units, different uniforms, headwear, equipment pieces that we wanted to get right. And that's ultimately what set us down the path to reforging our human models so much and so frequently. And in the latest iteration, and I would say final iteration, I think we nailed it, and I'm very satisfied. But it took a lot of work, a lot of great artists backing me up as well, notably Andrew Halim and Tomasz Gaz, amazing artists, and couldn't have done it without them. It's been a journey, and I loved every second of it.
The game was released in 2021 after a 3-month free open beta. The response was very positive. The good reception of the game led to the acquisition of the game's engine license, and thanks to this, the game would later become a standalone at the end of 2023.
First time I saw the Gates of Hell announcement back in 2018, and I was really impressed from the screenshots posted by Bertwire Studios. I didn't expect to see such graphics improvement on the Gem engine, and when the open beta was released, I played it on the first day. I opened the first mission and I couldn't believe my eyes because we never saw such graphic improvements in the game series in Men of War and Call to Arms. I had a shock how immersive this game was, the sound, the graphics, how precisely the units were created for this game.
During these years, we released well over 50 updates. Some of them were fixes and improvements, others added entire add-ons to the game, like the early wartime period for multiplayer and several other game modes. Our community grew, and we had some good times playing meta games with our ever-increasing player base.
The community always like to want things from us, and but when I sit down with them and I try and explain to them what it would cost to want, it's one thing or the other, but they never want to compromise on stuff. So it always becomes a matter of, if you want this new feature, this is what you're going to have to pay to do it. And suddenly it's like, oh, well, on second thought, maybe I don't want that new feature because I'd rather just have all the new fun toys. It's much more fun for them to want to get hold of all the fun stuff, but it's never fun to get just the bug fixes and nothing else. We always try to give them something fun with bug fixes in our patches.
I start with some research. I study historical photos, blueprints, technical manuals, and of course for time references to understand the weapon's proportions, materials, and some unique features. So as you know, one weapon can have many modifications, and it's very important to be able to recognize them.
When I make an animation, it's usually a 3-step process. First, it starts with recording the animation and determining whether I want to do it by hand or with motion capture. We then move on to the second part, which is detailing and refining the animation, and the third part, which is eventually exporting the animation once everything looks good. Ultimately, that's the pipeline, as we call it, that flows animations into the engine.
The game's expansions take a very long time to make due to the efforts that we go through in trying to deliver the best historical experiences within the realm of the real-time tactics genre. There is still a long journey ahead for our team to cover lots of theaters and nations of the Second World War. We are grateful to the community for their enthusiastic support, which is what enables us to continue developing. Barbed Wire Studios is a remote organization with the team members spread out all over the world, yet all of the artists, modelers, and level designers, and even one of the original game engine creators work closely together. Nowadays, the team is bigger, much bigger, but when it started, they were all on zero budget, working in their spare time. In 2021, after overcoming serious hurdles, we released Gates of Hell. So, how did we manage to pull through such an epic journey? Let's start by asking the studio director, Carlos.
One of the biggest challenges was finding a balance between the realism we're trying to depict without it becoming a military simulator where the fun of the strategy gameplay is lost. Another huge challenge was adapting the netcode to the larger scale of battles in Gates of Hell, and even to this day, it's one of our biggest focal points going forward. Gates of Hell is a game made for a very specific audience that can enjoy the cosmetic realism that we have in the game, all the variety of units and the variations, the little historical details, the people that really know their stuff about World War II and like to be in a community of like-minded people. They can discuss each other's preferences and details, try to find all the things that the game does right and the ones that the game could improve on. I think that the game has got a very special recipe. The game's balance between the realism and the fun aspect, the game mechanics, the replayability value of the game. It's managed to bring quite a few more people than just what the original niche of the game was targeting.
The Call to Arms Gates of Hell gameplay mechanics are being maintained and watched over by the lead game designer. Our lead game designer was also our first sound designer. Let's ask him about his recollection of how it all started, where we are now, and what's ahead in the world of game design.
Where I was coming from before I started on the project was a game designer for a different mod. I don't want to say that mod was dying, but it was kind of run its course and we weren't actively developing it anymore. So when Carlos approached me, this gave me a new avenue or venue to direct that creative energy that I had to something new. Obviously being part of something greater than a mod, but an actual game. was very enticing as well. I have an education in audio engineering, but the coding and stuff was just out of a hobby, out of pure interest, self-taught, talking to others that knew it. It felt like a puzzle sometimes, trying to figure out how something worked or how to get it to do something that I wanted it to do. That just unlocked that creative side for me that I really enjoy doing.
So in Gates of Hell, what would you say is your favorite game mode, and in which direction would you like to develop it?
Well, I'd say Conquest is my favorite game mode. Coming from the mod team Dynamic Campaign Generator, it's very similar. I'd love to develop it more. We have the time and resources. There's things I'd like to add, like a calendar system. That way the player can pick what year in the war that they're starting from, and then I'd love that the operations would not just end. I'd love for one operation to continue into the next one, so a player could choose to play in maybe D-Day on Normandy, play an operation around that time, then move on to Market Gardens, then move on to maybe Berlin, and they keep their units throughout all of that and progress.
The engine that powers Call to Arms Gates of Hell is known as GEM2. It has evolved tremendously since the original creators began work on it at the end of the previous century. It is the ideal engine to power the game, as it combines excellent strategy gameplay options with the ability to control each individual unit, and does so in tremendous detail, which leads to the immersion and the replayability that our players enjoy. We are fortunate to be able to work with one of the original creators of the engine.
We wanted to make a good game, and we figured that to make a good game we have to create our own engine. At some point we saw that it can be used for more than one game in the same genre, same game mechanics, but it's usable. So that's how it started.
How difficult is it to work on the game engine code?
Well, let's say it's not easy, specifically because of the legacy code. If you add something on top, you have to be very careful so the other parts that use the same code or part of that code doesn't immediately break, and that sometimes it happens like walking on a minefield. Still, I like this type of challenge because it keeps your brain working, programming. I don't do this job just because I have to. I do it because I like it, and when it comes to challenge, when it comes to creating something that is difficult, that I have to think through correctly, when it gets right, when you see the result, it's very rewarding.
As Call to Arms Gates of Hell is known for its realism and being close to historically correct, there must be something about its level design that makes it so. Copying actual historical battlefields to appear in-game is one of the pillars the total visual design rests on. So, how do they do it? Let's hear it from Niels, our lead level designer.
When it comes to the mission, we try to research the actual events. We try to read everything about how it unfolded. Usually we work from historical books, articles, unit histories and personal records. Everything that we can find basically to try to create a chronology of the events. Then we try to isolate everything that could translate into gameplay and how to make it so that the mission will tell what the operation or the battle was like or about in the format of a game mission. We always start with the historical sources as much as possible. We are very lucky in France to have the National Geographic Institute, which has uploaded on the internet like the entirety of the country covered with aerial pictures that were made in the 1960s. We of course cross-reference it with World War II pictures and with all sorts of period pictures that we can find to make sure that we make the map as accurate as possible. But still, sometimes if it does not fit gameplay so well, we'll still take some freedom to modify the terrain.
Level design is one of the biggest components of the game due to the focus of recreating real events and locations to the best of our ability. The game has over 200 single-player, multiplayer, and conquest maps made over the years by designers like Camille.
I've joined the studio in January 2019. I've been working there for these 6 years. I think it's a very well spent 6 years.
After these 6 years of making maps, which is the map you made that you are most proud of?
This is actually a map that I've made very recently. It's a part of the British DLC. I cannot reveal its name yet, but it's a part of the Operation Market Garden.
With that said, we can now turn to the assets and vehicles that we use on the historical battlefields. Let's ask the art department leader, Ferry, about his modeling, rigging, texturing, and the like.
In 2009, I played a lot with the Man of War. Decided, what if I just export a lot of Hungarian vehicles? So I learn how to use 3ds Max, how to use Photoshop to make texture for it. And of course, there was a very good tutorial from Chromtech. So because of this, I started exporting Hungarian vehicles into the game.
Now that we have these ingredients, we can put them to use in mission design. One of the later additions to the team, Barbed Wire Studios is very proud to have Ilya. Responsibility for scripting basically means having total control of the available mechanics and optimizing their use in fun and innovative ways. Let's ask Ilya how he makes what he makes.
The best advantage of this engine is its opportunity to create custom content and custom scenarios depending on your fantasy. There are basically no limits in most of your work. We are focusing on the evolving user experience in terms of the mission design, how to do the missions. Our biggest advantages are the cinematic moments. We want to make it even better, even more cinematic, even more immersive, so it feels like you're watching a movie. Now we are applying a new approach to the mission design that every action the player has a consequence. For example, a player does something, enemy responds to it. One very important thing is to make the general mission flow much more dynamic, much more cinematic and immersive.
Call to Arms Gates of Hell would not have its great community without the efforts of our community manager. Over the years, he managed to get the attention of the right people to make the game popular, partaking in many areas of development. He bridges the technical achievements of the team with what the people can see and enjoy. Let's hear from Fritz.
It's a question of getting more people interested in this world of historical correctness and realism. The main strategy from the start was to approach other communities that have a bit of overlap with Gates of Hell and try to get the people interested in a slightly different game. But I think the main selling point of Gates of Hell is, it's almost an unfair advantage. It's a beautiful game that anyone could like. If you're just a game player, you can like this game. But if you're very much interested in history, it's also easy to like our game. I always say it's easy to sell a quality product. And I think Gates of Hell has a lot of quality in many ways.
And with that, we wrap up this look behind the scenes of one of the smallest yet happiest developer teams in the industry.
So Carlos, looking back on the past 10 years, would you do it all over again?
When our producer Julia approved the project for development back then, she asked me, "Are you ready for Titanic work?" And of course I trusted and believed her, and it turned out indeed to be a huge undertaking. But it's been such a lovely and rewarding undertaking, and I've met so many brilliant people on that journey that yes, I would do it again, no doubt.